If your measurement in life is how much money you're making, then you're looking at things all wrong. In this video, I'm going to show you that winning the game of life doesn't depend on how much money you make, but rather it's the way that you play the game. This is a strategy that I learned way back in my 30s, and it helped me to reach financial freedom by the time I was 30 years old. I know it can do the same for you, so stay tuned. All right, welcome back. So in last week's video, I laid out that the game of life that people are playing is broken. The game of go to school, get good grades, go to a good college, get a good job, save for retirement, it's broken, and I showed you the stats why. If you haven't seen it, make sure to go back and watch that video. I'll link to it at the end. But I said that game was broken. I laid out a new game. I showed you a game that I've been playing for over 20 years, and it's worked out pretty good, and it's worked out for thousands or hundreds of thousands of other people as well. And I kind of showed you what that game was. Again, I'm not going to recap the whole thing, but it was based off of this cash flow quadrant. I took this from Robert Kiyosaki from Rich Dad Poor Dad, a book that changed my life back in the 20s. If you haven't read it, then you definitely should. So you want to move from the E, the employee, the self-employed business, and to the investor quadrant. The game is moving through there. I'm not going to go back through that. I'm going to talk, that was the game. Today we're going to talk about how to play it. More importantly, not just how to play the game, but how to win the game, right? We play games to win them. So you want to know how to play it, but you also want to know how to win it. So first thing we have to do is we have to understand that there's a big difference between being rich and being wealthy. It's important to understand that they're not the same thing. To be rich means that you have lots of money. You have a high income, your salary's high, but usually your expenses are also high as well. And because your income is high and your expenses are high, you're a slave to the grind. As your income goes up, you buy a bigger house. As your income goes up, you get a new car. So you're making a lot of income, but your expenses are also really high, so you're stuck on that wheel. It makes it really hard to accumulate wealth. And it's a spending trap is basically what it is. Using money or really using income as a way to keep score is wrong. It's not about how much money that you have. It's about wealth, right? We want to measure wealth. And so the difference of rich versus wealthy is that the wealthy don't worry about money. The wealthy have financial freedom. The wealthy are not living paycheck to paycheck. They don't have to work in order to live anymore because they have income that comes from their passive investments or residual income. Now you notice when I talked about rich, I talked about how much money they're making, their salaries are high, right? When I talk about wealthy, I don't talk about how much money they're making or their salaries being high. What I talk about is not having to work for money. In order to do that, the first thing that we have to understand is that there's a difference between assets and liabilities. This is what a typical financial statement would look like, where you have your income and you have your expenses. So your income hopefully is more than your expenses, it should be. And then you have to list your assets and your liabilities to give you your net worth. And so you have to understand the difference of what assets and liabilities are. Assets are things that put money back into your income, and liabilities take money. They go into your expense column. So assets bring income, liabilities create expenses, right? That's the difference. And most people don't really understand that. It sounds simple enough when I break it down, but they don't understand it. So for example, you've been taught that your home is your single biggest investment. But let me ask you a question. Does your home put money into your bank account every month, or does it take money out of your bank account every month? Is your car an asset, or is it a liability? Does your car put money into your bank account, or does your car take money out of your bank account, right? Now, if I owned a limo company, all those limos I owned would be assets because they would be bringing me money each month. But my personal car is not an asset because it costs me money every month. This is the big key to understanding how to win this game, all right? We need to be moving from the E to the I because it's going to increase our time, it's going to increase our income, it's going to lower our tax liability and all those other things. But really the key to winning this game is understanding it's not about making more money, it's about accumulating more assets. Usually what happens is when I make more money, like I said before, my expenses go up. I buy a bigger car, I buy a bigger house, and my expenses go up. But what we want to do is, instead of focusing on liabilities, we want to focus on building assets with our income. And that's why the amount of income that I make isn't the most important factor of me winning the game of life. It's really about building up my passive incomes. The goal is to build my passive incomes up to meet my expenses. Once I've built my passive income up to meet my expenses, I'm done. I've won the game. I can keep making more money, but as long as my expenses keep going up with it, I'm never getting ahead. Maybe I'm looking like I'm living a better life than you. I have a nicer car in my driveway. I live in a better neighborhood, but ultimately we're on the same rat race. Like, neither of us are getting anywhere. We're on the same hamster wheel. If I can keep my expenses here and I can start building up my passive income to slowly meet my expenses and then surpass my expenses, I've won the game. Let me show you how you can do this. Like I said, we want to keep our expenses low so we can take that extra income that we earn and we can put it into these passive investments. Now, you have to understand how these investments work. And like I said before, an asset is something that pays you. Now, what it pays you with a return on your investment. So typically that's measured in a percentage. It gives you a 5% return on your investment. It gives you a 10% return on your investment or something like that. And we measure that with something called a rule of 72. So the rule of 72 basically tells us how long it takes that investment to double our money. And the rule of 72 teaches you how long it's going to take you to do that. So you take 72, you divide it by the rate of return, and that shows you how much. So for example, if I was making 10% interest, that's my rate of return, I divide it by 72 and I get 7.2 years. So if I could make 10% on my money every 7 years, I'm doubling it. And it may not sound like a lot, but it adds up really quickly because 10 goes to 20, it goes to 40, goes to 80, goes to 160. As it gets bigger, those doubles get to be way more exciting when it goes from 500,000 to 1 million, etc. Examples of how you can do this are dividend-paying stocks. There's lots of stocks that you can buy that pay dividends. Some pay 3%, some pay 5%, some pay 10%, depending on the stock. And so you can take those dividends and you can reinvest them. So you're buying more stock, which then earns bigger dividends. And then you reinvest that, and it's called compounding. You can also do that with real estate. So you can find a house somewhere in the Midwest. You can put $50,000, for $50,000, you can put $10,000 down on it. And then you're making 10% return on the $10,000 that you put down. You can also invest into private companies. I invest into lots of private companies and then I get distributions from those, profit sharing, etc. You can reinvest that. That's compounding interest because now you're earning interest on the interest. Albert Einstein called that the eighth wonder of the world. Compounding interest is one of the most powerful things that we can use, especially if you're younger, because you have that benefit of time. In order to play this game, in order to win this game, like I said, you really just have to change your mindset. And so instead of trying to make more money and get that bigger house, get that bigger car, you have to realize that that's not important. That's not the game I'm playing. The game that I've been playing since I was in my early 20s was trying to get my passive income to meet or exceed my expenses. That's the game that I play. If that sounds good to you, make sure you give me some thumbs up on that because I know it sounds good to me. Like I said, I've been playing that game. But really, you just have to change your mindset, like I said, right? Work hard, hustle hard, make more money so you can keep buying more passive income. You're investing for cash flow. And then get that cash flow to equal or exceed your monthly expenses. And that's it. Leave me some questions and comments if you want to know any more specifics on any of these specific strategies. Give me likes if you liked it, thumbs down if you don't like it, either way. And that's it. To your success. I'm out.